Hey everybody, this is Dan.
And this is Ron.
This is Anomaly Questionable Movies.
And we're back after a 6 month hiatus. Actually, longer. It was it's almost like a 9 month hiatus with a quick break 6 months ago.
Hmm.
The stuff we put. And it took me what? Let's see, 5 months to post it. It
Hmm.
took a lot of editing. It was hard work getting
Yeah,
those motorcycles.
and now the show has a gift shop.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That has been been holding us up, I think. If you want to stop by the gift shop, it's in Ballston Spa, New York.
Right
We're
across
open
from.
Wednesday to Sunday. It's Silver Factory Records.
What is it across from?
It's across from the USA gas station where they got the cheap gas.
That's how people recognize it, right? People know the cheap
Seems
gas.
to be, yeah, that or they know it as like that property that was abandoned for 20 years. Like still every day, I think for however, mid-July I opened. For reference for people listening to this later, we're recording in like mid-February.
Yeah, yeah. Last thing we recorded was in August and released in January.
Yeah,
but it was like 5 episodes.
So yeah, like every day I get somebody turning in and they're like, "Wow, this place isn't abandoned." Like at first it was a little weird because I was getting these people, they'd walk in for like 2 seconds and then walk out.
Uh-huh.
And I think they're just checking that there's like actually a thing in the building.
To see if that sign out front like is for real.
Yeah, because I mean it just hasn't been open as anything for 10 years.
Yeah, wow.
Because like we were one of maybe like two people or maybe like 15 people total who ever ate at so, well, you know what? No, I don't. The land. I'll just say it, the landlord's my dad. That's the
Shout
only.
out to your dad.
It's the only real way to run a bookstore in 2022. There's a slight amount of in Paris or in France they subsidize the sidewalk cafes, right?
Really?
Oh yeah. Those aren't economically efficient.
Hmm.
And anyway,
Yeah.
Rabbit Test.
Oh God, did we pick a winner? And it's my fault. Although I am a little proud. Dan, did I find a movie that you didn't know of?
I did not know this existed.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to pat myself on the short a little bit because that's not very common. And we've had several on the show, but I don't think is it representative the number of times in the show that I found something that you hadn't heard of or
I never heard of Lishtomania.
Okay, right. That's
I never heard of what's the one with Kirsten Dunst that you've seen like 10 times?
Oh, Bachelorette?
Yeah, Bachelorette. I never heard of Bachelorettes.
That's right. Well,
yeah,
114. Actually more well, let's say about 110 because 110, 120. We've had 114 episodes. Well, a few times there were some multiple movies, but then we also did comic books and videos and whatnot. So
yeah,
3 out of 120. That's what we'll call it. Let's see.
I think that would be like 2.7%.
Yep, 0.025. So 2.5%.
Okay.
Exactly. So yeah, wow. Okay, that sounds about right then. There were many more movies that I hadn't heard of that you introduced me to, but that's why I take a little bit of pride.
Well, that's because you've had a job for the last like 30 years.
And
people ask me like, how did you get the time to watch all this crap and read all this crap?
Yeah.
And like avoiding meaningful employment for 10 years.
Well, I also watch a lot of crap that I don't remember and move their share. So one of those. Plus,
I mean, we've definitely watched a few movies where you're like, I never heard of this, and then halfway through, you're like, oh, I saw this.
Yeah, that's true. That's what happens when you watch movies to go to sleep every night and like are kind of groggy and fall asleep in the middle. Like, what did I watch last night?
Somehow the other night I fell asleep to Married with Children.
Well, you've been watching a lot of that lately, right?
Well, because I had an ad blocker on and I didn't realize that stops the like thing on Peacock that says like you've had enough, you're drunk, go home. Like on YouTube, if you watch too many videos in a row, they're like, "Are you still even here?"
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've gotten that one multiple times. Well, my
Um,
favorite example of my having watched a movie, forgotten about it, is The Guilt Trip with Seth Rogen and Barbara Streisand. I started watching it for some reason. I'm like, and I started predicting what was going to happen. It's like, oh, I think I know. I bet this is going to happen. Oh, I bet. And finally, I realized, like, oh, I've seen this before. So
hmm.
I watched The Guilt Trip twice, or maybe one. I probably watched the whole thing the second time because I was like, most of the time I'm a completionist. So I have to watch. Sometimes I'd be like, yeah, I'm not spending any more time on this one, especially if I've already seen it. But I probably watched that one to the end a second time.
The Guilt Trip. I never saw that one.
I don't recommend it. So unless you're really into Seth Rogen or Barbara Streisand, or if you're into
No,
both,
wait, no, I did see like 20 minutes of that.
yeah, that's about the right amount to watch. I
Yeah,
mean,
and I
it
was
wasn't
like,
awful. It wasn't like the worst movie. It wasn't like this movie.
yeah, this movie was like actually in like there were points because we watched like a VHS rip that was on YouTube, so it looked like it was printed on like 35 millimeter sheets of used toilet paper. But yeah, for 30 minutes, I was like, oh, am I just like having trouble getting into this because the video is so bad? Like, if the video was better, is there something to appreciate here? And then I think like 45 minutes in, I was like, no, like, this is the picture quality this movie deserves, And so I guess to set up the movie, it was directed, was it written by Joan Rivers?
It was co-written by Joan Rivers.
Okay, it was directed by Joan Rivers, co-written by Joan Rivers. It stars Billy Crystal. I think like basically the same time he was on Soap,
Yeah. Soap started in 77 and this movie came out in 78.
and he's kind of like playing his character from Soap for most of the movie, from what I remember, because I watched a lot of Soap as a kid.
Yeah. It
Um,
starts off he's gay, but it starts off like in episode 2, spoiler. He wants to undergo a sex change operation. So there's a little bit of that. I think eventually that changes, right? He no longer wants to do that, and he's
are you talking about on Soap?
well, yeah, on soap.
Yeah, on Soap, he's like he's gay, and then I think he's considering a sex change, and then he somehow like knocks up this, brown-haired, very 70s looking woman, and then most of the rest of their plot lines that I remember is like, what is it? They're like about to get married, and then she stands him up at the altar.
Hmm.
Um,
he gets the baby. I know there's like a custody battle, maybe.
Yeah, there's a custody battle, and like it mostly becomes about him wanting to be a father, and you just don't hear much about him being gay ever again.
How many women doesn't he hook up with? Because he keeps insisting that he's gay, but he ends up
More than dudes. I think there's like one dude that he brings home like in the first 5, 6 episodes.
yeah,
And then after that, we just never see him with a dude ever again.
and they never kiss.
Right.
Yeah, it's a totally sexless, aromantic. Well, not aromantic, but asexual, and that's
Yeah, and you kind of realize that like the actual gay couple on the show is Chuck and Bob, the ventriloquist.
Lots of fisting.
Yeah, a lot of every scene.
Yeah, public fisting too.
Somehow they got it on network TV.
Yeah, you couldn't have a same-sex kiss, but you could have a same-sex human wood fisting on television. So.
Right, yeah, you can have
So,
like the human fisting the puppet, but you can't have the puppet fisting the human.
yeah, but so in that respect, this movie is actually nothing like that. But his character, he always seems to play a similar.
Well, he starts out quote unquote gay, and then most of the movie's about him worrying how to get married to a woman.
Yeah.
That's what reminded me of Soap.
He doesn't start out gay. He just has never had sex with a woman until this one night stand in which a woman.
Oh, okay. I guess I kind of took it as like when he says in the beginning, "I've never had sex with a woman." It was him trying to tell the other guy that he was gay, but maybe that wasn't it, because that would make the movie make a lot more sense.
His mom suddenly says, "Are you a fairy?" But that's the closest.
Right, and then like he gets pregnant because the girl's on top.
Right.
I want to say,
yeah, this woman oh my God, I just realized a woman forces him basically to have sex on top of a pinball machine. Yeah, this woman gets on top of him and has sex, sort of half forcing It
Mm.
very questionable. Well, he's sort of into it. Sort of, she coerces him into it. How's that? How's that? So yeah,
She
she's on
couldn't
top.
keep her hands off Billy Crystal.
And then 6 weeks later, he starts getting really nauseous and all this stuff. And it turns out that he is pregnant. And hence the movie Rabbit Test, hence the movie title. And in fact, they confirm that he's pregnant because he does get the old school rabbit test. He actually tries to revive the rabbit. He gives it mouth to mouth, but no, the rabbit is totally dead and Billy Crystal is totally pregnant. And I think we can end the episode there because this movie isn't worth discussing.
Well, I mean, there's a bunch of like racism in the middle,
but it's not worth watching. That's why we're here. Again, it's like
very not worth watching. Yeah.
What was that?
It's very not worth watching.
No. In fact, let's not even tell people how to find this movie because it's not easy to find. Well, it's expensive if you want to buy it or rent it. It's cheap if you want to see it for free. It's readily available, but you'll have to figure this out on your own. We are not directing you there.
Yeah, if you cherish any of your memories of Joan Rivers, avoid this movie at all costs.
Yeah, wow. I mean, she's funny. She was groundbreaking and all this. And there's all these funny people in the movie that make guest appearances. It even goes so far to include Roddy McDowall in 2 roles. That's when Roddy McDowall came on, and I was like, hey! He was the closest thing to not unfunny. It wasn't
there were
funny.
A lot of points in this movie where I was like, this seems like it should have a laugh track, but it doesn't.
Yeah. And so many racist jokes. Oh my God. And I do have to say, one of the racist jokes was actually clever and almost not racist, but it was couched by this racist jokes all around it, all sorts of offense. The racist jokes were the worst, I think.
Well, it's like a 20-minute segment, right? Because they're touring Billy Crystal around.
Yeah.
To meet all these dignitaries, and I guess this is what Joan Rivers thinks of all these people.
And at the time, all these jokes were fair game, complete with Billy Bartley, who was a famous little person who would show up a lot and stuff. Billy Bartley in blackface playing a ventriloquist dummy. Oh my God!
It seems so edgy, but then it seems like it goes from like later period Zucker Brothers, like just offensive. Like there's 100 gags a minute, and none of the gags work, right? Like, did you see An American Carol?
No, I did not. I don't know.
No, it's the last Zucker Brothers movie with Leslie Nielsen in it, and they kind of went like total right-wing lunatic.
Does that start off with like really bad, really offensive portrayals of can't remember if it's Iraq or Afghanistan?
Yeah, and it has that kind of vibe to it where there's a lot of things that are supposed to be jokes and none of them are landing as jokes.
Now, when I was watching that, I was wondering if there are some really right-wing, jingoistic, and racist folks out there who watch and like, this is, like total LOL.
Tons. I remember in college, like that was around when Borat came out, and most of the kids at the school didn't take it like ironically.
Oh.
They just thought it was like a funny voice. They're like, throw the Jew down the well, throw the Jew down the well. And like, I mean, the American public has never really been great at grasping nuance.
Yeah.
Anything, I would say.
Although I did hear, like in terms of the making the movie, people do know that there's cameras recording them, and they have to sign releases and all that, and so they were given a little bit of a heads up about this. So when you say in that context, they're sort of going along with the bit. So it's hard to tell how much of it is going along with the bit and how much was just anti-Semitism, for example, and other cases racism and other things. So if you're in a room and somebody's doing that and you're thinking, oh, okay, I see in this context, well, maybe you think it's ironic, or they're anti-Semitic and they think it's a great song. So it's hard to tell. I don't know. I mean, I don't.
Well, I remember there were South Park episodes that would come on where it was, most people are not reading movies or TV as like, okay, this has a point. I think most people are reading is like, this thing entertained me or not.
Yeah. Well,
With
Kyle,
granted, like with Rabbit Test, none of it was entertaining either. Like, did you laugh once this entire movie?
I did twice,
Okay.
with a little chuckle, a little muffled chuckle. That's well, okay. So there was the racist jokes. There was a series of racist jokes,
Uh-huh.
and right in the middle there was this brief bit that, if it hadn't been couched by this racism, it reminded me of something out of a Mel Brooks movie. But that's why it was muffled chuckle, because it couldn't go past that. If this was Mel Brooks, it would have been hilarious. And there's, it's kind of funny. Of all the Mel
Well,
Brooks,
Mel Brooks is kind of like the master of doing that. Like it should be offensive, but it isn't offensive joke.
right, because it is ironic. So much of it is ironic. It's irony and parody. But so in that context, it would have been pretty funny, because it was something. There was a whole song and dance thing that just was totally incongruous with the setup. So
Right. I think like Mel Brooks, he's looking at the movie. He's like acknowledging like class and race stuff
uh-huh.
pretty openly in his movies, whereas Joan Rivers, just having if this movie was all I knew about Joan Rivers, I would presume that Joan Rivers had literally never met a black person.
Oh my God, yes. Oh, and then there was when he goes to China, and I don't want to repeat the joke, because I understand there was a whole setup to it, culminating in a at the time common anti-Chinese immigrant, or not anti, well, yeah, racist towards Chinese immigrants. So when he goes to China and he meets the representative of the Chinese government, he makes that same. There's a whole setup to it, and he makes that joke, a pun on it, and I don't want to repeat what it is. But it's another example. There's all this setup to this horribly unfunny joke. But I'm wondering, at the time, because these jokes would appear in stand-up comedy or other stuff, was this movie acceptable, or was
Well, so I read some reviews last night.
Oh, do tell.
After I finished the movie, Roger Ebert gave this 1 star out of 4.
Oh, okay.
Which is pretty uncommon. Like, I've seen a lot of 1.5.
Uh-huh.
Generally, I think Roger was trying to be a nice guy.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it with this movie. I think the other review was 1.5 stars. Everybody hated this movie when it came out.
Did you find a Leonard Maltin review by any chance?
Well, I'm sure Leonard Maltin gave it 2.5 stars and said intermittent laughs.
Right. It's too bad Matt didn't watch it, because he's able to guess Leonard Maltin reviews within a half star. Oh, but Leonard Maltin did like Jojo Rabbit, so that's like in the same universe, right? Not the word rabbit. Sorry.
For a second, I thought you meant Jojo Dancer.
Jojo Rabbit is a great movie. I should not mar it by connecting it to this. Nothing to do with it.
Oh yeah, I thought you were bringing up Jojo Dancer because it's like another like famous comedian vanity movie.
Oh no, what's Jojo Dancer?
It's the only movie that Richard Pryor ever directed.
That is it, or is it good?
I've never seen it.
Oh well, there we go.
I've heard mixed things.
Okay, mixed is good. I mean, Richard Pryor was great. He was a genius, and he was one of the writers on right? He was one of the writers in Blazing Saddles, and he was originally going to play Bart. Studios thought that with his particular style of comedy, and there are already stories about his drug use, right? Yeah, so I don't think.
Well, Jojo Dancer was made after he lit himself on fire freebasing.
Oh Jesus!
So it's also one of those like bad thing happened to me. I recovered. Let's make a movie. Movies.
Well, now I'm curious to see it. Maybe we should do it next episode.
Because I'm thinking like, and actually speaking of one-off comedies, I got in at the store the other day. You can tell I'm just using any excuse I can to not have to talk about Rabbit Test.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But I got in an original Broadway program program from Hellzapoppin' when it was live.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was
that's
in a
right.
pile, and like, of course, the guy bringing it in had no idea what it was because, like, I think we're the only two people who've watched Hellzapoppin' after like 1950.
Which is unfortunate because it's a great movie. Oh my god, and it's
That's
got
a great, yeah. Don't watch Rabbit Test. Go watch that.
yeah, yeah. And Hell's a Popping has one of the best dance scenes in movie history, I think. So, but yeah, I forgot that it was a vaudeville act, right? A vaudeville show.
Yeah, and it's interesting seeing the program because it's and actually there were two per so there was a Broadway program and then there was a touring program
Mm-hmm.
that didn't have the two main guys. It was just like apparently there was a script
Mm,
or there was enough of a script where you could like license that out to a touring company.
okay, I can see that. I mean, those jokes they take a lot of setup, and they take their pardon my
Oh yeah,
mile a minute.
I'm just surprised because like the reviews of it at the time when I looked it up, they were notorious for like never doing the show in the same order, basically, or like they just cut stuff certain nights, or like you kind of never knew what you were gonna get.
Oh
Which
god.
like that kind of show I think works.
Yeah, yeah. God, Dan, I'm having such a hard time focusing on anything good because I'm still thinking and still reeling from this movie because I just finished it about an hour and a half ago. I watched it this morning.
Okay, well, Ron, this might sound familiar, but tell me five positive things about the movie, and then we can get to your.
Okay, and I'm gonna leave out that it ended. That doesn't count as one of the five. All right. It had a lot of really funny people, all these cameos by folks. So that was neat to see them.
They got paid,
They,
presumably.
yeah, we don't know if they got paid. They might okay, so it has that. It did bring back memories because I saw this, and this is how I knew about it. I saw this when I was in middle school on a local TV channel. I only remember the end.
Mm.
So I don't know how much of it I actually saw. I probably just caught it somewhere in the middle or near the end. And so it was like all these years I've wanted to know what it's like. So that's two. I finally learned what the movie was like. Well, three, because as I said, it brought back memories.
Mm.
And they're not unfond memories. So that's three.
Mm.
It was short. I'll give it that. Does that count as one? So that's four.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at least she didn't make it like if this was like Judd Apatow movie length,
Yeah.
this would be up there with like the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is like, I mean, Ishtar, I don't think is actually a bad movie,
It's
but
not
this
a
is
bad
so much worse than Ishtar.
Oh my God, yes.
But Ishtar gets all the shit.
Ishtar did not deserve to end Elaine May's career. This movie, if this killed Joan Rivers' career, it would have been well deserved. But that's why I wonder. Oh yeah, the reception.
I wonder about it because Elaine May is another stage comedian that moved to directing movies.
Right. And writing.
And writing, yeah. And she actually did like two exceptionally good movies and then Ishtar, which Ishtar is not nearly as. And Ishtar, I think, actually manages that, like, okay, fish out of water, let's like have fun with other cultures kind of thing. It manages it a lot better than this movie does.
Uh-huh.
And I think the weirdest part when he's like flying around meeting all these dignitaries is that at first I was like, okay, this is going to be Joan Rivers' like observations about, I presume that she had a daughter by this point.
Let's see. Yeah. Actually, well, let's see. Melissa Rivers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here, I'll look it up at my.
I just kind of presume if that's like the subject of the movie, it seems to almost be just like
Melissa Rivers was 10 years old at the time. So
yeah, so I'm thinking like, okay, it's going to be like her observations about pregnancy filtered through Billy Crystal. It's funny because he's he's a dude or whatever, right? And it's 1978. And it doesn't really resent, at least like, I've never been pregnant. I've never been, married to somebody who was pregnant or something, but it really didn't seem to have much to do with pregnancy.
No, it was
the last half of it. Like the last half of it seemed to be like her saying, like, I did a world tour and I hate everyone.
Yeah.
Like it felt a bit more like the Gong Show movie where it's just sort of like exhaustion and disgust at fame. Or I guess you could even put like Stardust Memories in that category. And I think that came out the same year.
Wow, that's I don't know who that insults more.
I don't know. I mean, Stardust Memories is definitely a better movie,
Yeah.
if only because they got Ingmar Bergman's cinematographer to do all the photography.
Seriously?
Yeah, and all those early Woody Allen movies, he got well, I mean, like not Take the Money and Run, but like Manhattan. They, basically, as soon as he had the clout with the studio to get that, he was like, I want Ingmar Bergman's cinematographer because he was obsessed with Ingmar Bergman.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like Interiors, Manhattan, Stardust Memories. Honestly, I think most of the 80s movies, it's that guy. I'm blanking. It's not, or no, I think it is Sven Nykvist.
Hmm. Oh, that's really neat. I did not know that, but there are many things I don't know, so I'm not
Well,
surprised.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like, you think Woody Allen knows how to take black and white photographs?
Fair enough. Fair enough. And the best way to emulate Ingmar Bergman's visual style is to include a cinematographer.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Well, yeah,
so
'cause, like Interiors is literally just him trying to make a Bergman movie, and that's an embarrassing movie. That's really bad.
yeah, but not as bad as Rabbit Test.
Not quite as bad as I made it to the end of Interiors, I remember, without trying to clean the house when I saw it like 20 years ago.
Yeah, I'm checking.
And,
Oops.
and the very end of that is like it's basically like a parody of Ingmar Bergman. Like it's just like the old woman walks into the ocean because like that's what an Ingmar Bergman movie ends with in like an American Mind. Because it feels so Ingmar Bergman. And I'm thinking like I've seen probably 20 Ingmar Bergman movies, and I don't remember a specific one where an old lady walks into the ocean.
Uh-huh. So Razzies did not start until 1980. So this movie
Right.
missed out. I am certain it would have won. It would have won a Razzie. The first one in 1990 was "Can't Stop the Music," which we reviewed or
Mhm.
discussed with our buddy
Much,
Eric.
much better movie.
Yes, "Can't Stop the Music" is a much better movie. Next year, oh, how did Mommy Dearest win the Razzies? That was undeserved.
Oh, people hated that when that came out. Like that ended Faye Dunaway's career basically.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
like did you see her in anything after that really?
I don't know what. Oh, Bonnie and Clyde probably came out beforehand.
Bonnie and Clyde was 1967.
Yeah, okay, so I'm a few decades off.
Yeah, Bonnie and Clyde is what started her career. And then she has a pretty good run in the 70s. You know, she's in Network, she's in Chinatown, she's in some pretty good movies. And then Mommy Dearest comes out, and I think the version of Supergirl with her in it, which I've never seen still.
Oh, Dan, we've got to cover Supergirl.
It's is it like Mommy Dearest level? I
Um,
mean, is anything Mommy Dearest level?
I would say, well, her performance is just as I don't know if hammy. Oh, let's call it hammy. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's definitely is over the top.
Really, it's that shrieky over the top shit that she's doing in Mommy Dearest.
In middle school, Matt and I created the I Hate Supergirl fan club. I went in there like hoping for a good movie and came out there like, oh my God, I did not know who Faye Dunaway was. I did not know who Peter O'Toole was. But they were awful in it. So it's embarrassing for both of them. But we've got to watch it. We've got to watch it. I haven't seen it since I first saw
Yeah,
it when it came out. So
yeah. I mean, because like my memory, the first time I saw Mommy Dearest, what was it? It was the second woman I ever dated. It was the second time we ever hung out, and she was like, "Yo, you want to watch Mommy Dearest?" And
that's marriage material.
that movie got me laid. Is all I'm saying. Not many things have done that.
That sounds about right. I mean,
And then the next week we watched Troll 2. And then I think when
oh,
now that I'm thinking about it, the relationship ended when we tried to watch a good movie.
do you remember what movie it was?
Uh, I didn't like it that much, but like on a technical level, I can recognize it's a good movie. Cache by Michael Haneke.
Wait, the French movie?
Yeah.
Oh.
I just remember it has that thing that's in every Haneke movie where just all of his sets look like really immaculately clean bathrooms.
It's with Juliette Binoche.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Latoy, Juliette Binoche, and okay, directed by Michael Haneke. Well, so that I remember, I fall asleep during movies. Well, I went to see it with a couple of people, and I fell asleep. I really liked it, and I fell asleep. I don't know, 20 minutes into it, and I woke up and watched the just in time for the last scene. I saw it, and then I turned to them and said, "Wow, that looks like a good movie. I should watch it sometime."
We could probably get Haneke on the show.
Oh, what else has he done?
Well, he's a huge fan of John's work.
Of who?
John Jost.
No kidding.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Dan, you got to make your magic. Do your magic. Make magic.
Okay, yeah, I'll see if I can get him on here to talk about like funny games or something like that.
Okay. Oh, I want to talk to him about Cachet and tell him about how I fell asleep and that's actually. I really want to get.
Let's not watch any of his movies and then just bring him on for you to tell him that story. Like, yeah, I fell asleep during your movie.
He'll leave the meeting as soon as I say that. No, I'll have to start off with the I can never car. God.
Well, I was thinking we should cover funny games because like halfway through the internet we could be like, you've entered the house of Anomedy. It is your choice to be tortured now for the audience's immune. Like, did you ever see Funny Games?
I don't think so.
That's his most famous movie, but it's basically these two home intruders come in and they like torture this family for like an hour, and then they keep winking at the audience like you're only watching this because you enjoy it. But then you think about it, like if we're only watching it because on some level we enjoy it, Michael Haneke spent like probably 2 years of his life making this. Like you get into like Kaveh Zahedi interview mode.
Yeah.
And then we just feed all the comments to John because Michael Haneke won't know what to do with it.
All right, I'm gonna have to come up with something to give me a panic attack and then take Valium and pot. Be Kaveh Zahedi all over again. No, but I'll have to start out by reading the quote from Kiarostami about how he likes it when people fall asleep during movies because it means that it makes them comfortable. So I must have found his Cachet really comfortable to watch, which he probably doesn't want people to feel comfortable with.
I mean, I was pretty bored with it, yeah.
Oh no, I wasn't bored. I liked it. I just was tired. I fell asleep.
I don't know, yeah, just like visually, it's the same issue I have with Hal Hartley movies, right? Like if you watch Trust, everything looks like a fucking clean bathroom. Like you can kind of get away with that in 2001: A Space Odyssey, the only movie that kind of ever got away with that. And even that didn't quite get away with that because like that's pretty much what Andrei Tarkovsky wrote in his journal when he saw it. Like, why is everything so clean?
Yeah.
And that's why he made Solaris. And if you watch Solaris, you will notice there is like an egregious amount of garbage in that space station.
That was his response to it?
Yeah. Solaris is an answer film to 2001.
Oh, all right. Double feature. Yeah, okay. Solaris comes up 4 years later. Now I gotta watch Solaris again. The original, not the remake with is it George Clooney?
Yeah, the remake is mostly about George Clooney's butt, I think. That's as much as and it's like I like Steven Soderbergh. He's when he's making his own shit, he's very good. That one not so. Like I like Gus Van Sant, but that like shot for shot remake of Psycho, like nobody needed to see like a shot for shot remake of Psycho with Vince Vaughn.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Although I mean, have you seen it?
The remake of Psycho.
Yeah,
not all the way through now.
Okay, I haven't watched it, but I have had no desire to because I've seen Psycho, the original. That's not fair. I've watched plenty of remakes, and sometimes, people will say like, "Oh, why was that movie remade?" and all that. Sometimes the remake.
Well, because I've seen most of the Gus Van Sant movies, so it's like, okay, if I watch, I think that and that one about the Suicide Forest, I've seen all of them.
Okay.
Which the one about the Suicide Forest, that got, I don't know if that ever made it to like DVD because I just remember that made it to the festival. It got like awful reviews, and I never heard about it again. But I mean, he's made like quite a few really good movies, including we never covered Mala Noche, did we?
No.
Okay, there's a good movie pretty early on in terms of like explicitly stating like, okay, there's LGBTQ stuff going on here, movies. that's a really good movie. That's it's not Rabbit Test.
Yeah. Speaking of Rabbit Test, I want to say
Rabbit,
over the plot, and it's like, man, I've covered enough of it. Billy Crystal gets pregnant. The world responds to it. First, they're excited. He meets all these dignitaries from all over the world. The U.S. president, Indira Gandhi, racist Chinese and African. They do say Africa. So he goes to India. He goes to China. I think he goes to Africa. They don't even give a country name, which is typical of the period. Wait, I want to read some of the people that were in this. I don't know if this will mean much to people because it's been so long, but of course, Billy Crystal.
The picture quality on the version we watched was so bad that like I recognized Billy Crystal. I recognized Joan Rivers by her voice when she shows up for 2 minutes.
Yeah,
that's it.
Doris Roberts. Doris Roberts plays his mom. That's the mom on Everybody Loves Raymond. Billy Barty, who I mentioned. Who else? Roddy McDowall. Paul Lynde. Paul Lynde plays the doctor that first determines that he's pregnant. And let's see, Imogen Coca, who I can never remember who what she's been in. And yeah, I think Norman Fell shows up in it. I didn't recognize him again. I don't know if it was because of the he played what's his name on Three's Company, the first the Ropers. Mr. Roper. And anyways, Rosie Greer. Rosie Greer is the cab driver. Michael Keaton has a tiny role in it. Did you recognize Michael Keaton?
I saw on Wikipedia that it is his first role, and it is not a speaking one, and I did not see where he was.
He was the sailor that the not soothsayer, the what do you call it? The psychic. The psychic gives him a reading when Billy Crystal first walks into her place. So
okay.
Yeah. Oh, Charlotte Rae. Charlotte May makes a tiny joke about she's going into the church and she says, "I'm Jewish. Is that okay?" And the priest says, "Yes, but you're not allowed to pray," or something like that.
Yeah. Towards the beginning, yeah.
Yeah. So Jimmy J. Walker.
J.J. Walker.
J.J. Walker plays in that awful black Billy Bartney in blackface, playing a ventriloquist dummy.
Okay, J.J. Walker in blackface. So I told you about
no. Billy Barty's in blackface.
Oh, okay.
It's on J.J. Walker's lap because J.J. is the ventriloquist.
Oh, okay. Because like I told you, I met J.J. Walker once, right?
No, seriously?
Yeah. So when I was working at the comedy club when I was younger, I had they just kind of give me 5 minutes every week. And J.J. Walker came to town, and I had no idea who he was. But it was like this huge deal, and I went up, I did my 5 minutes. I think I did okay. And he goes up and he's just like his entire bit. He sounded sort of like how Bill Cosby did 20 years ago. He was just like, "What's the deal with all the black people committing all the crimes?"
Wow.
It was like really, I was kind of embarrassed as like a person. I was going to say as a white person, but that doesn't quite sound right.
It's probably a mostly white audience or all white audience?
Yeah. It was a predominantly white audience, but like kind of just playing the like, "See, old white people, you were right" card.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like it's sort of like a broad throw the Jews down the well thing. It's now he's going to upstate New York in a fairly in a very white area and a fairly
well, it kind of sounded like he made his money and then he turned into like, he wasn't like Candace Owens level, but it just kind of seemed like, oh, okay, this is all stereotyped. And like he was on Good Times, like,
yep,
he's talking about what he hears about at like his retirement home in Florida with the white people. It was but yeah, he was the biggest name that ever played Saratoga Comedy Club when I was there.
Ooh, wow.
He was on Good Times, right? That's the right. I got the right show.
Good Times. Yeah, he was. I mean,
he's the guy who says Dynamite, right?
That's him.
Yeah.
I'm looking at his Wikipedia page, and the last thing is personal life and political views. He was in the O'Reilly Factor. He did not vote for Obama in 2008. And this was in mid 2012. He said he's not going to vote for him in 2012 either. On CNN, he called himself a realist independent, opposed affirmative action, saying it has outlived its usefulness. He was against gay marriage on moral ground, but believed its legalization should be passed. Interesting.
Yeah, because the time I would have seen him would have been around like 2006.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like, yeah, he was pretty conservative, according to his own statements. As he said in his book. He had a book. Yeah. Oh, you know what? He did, I'm looking here. In 2019, he released Live in Front of a Studio Audience. Good Times. I've seen that. I don't remember it. I just remember it being awful.
Yeah, like the best comedians that would come through there, it was always like the guys that were uncredited writers on Howard Stern. Like Tim Gage was really, really funny. Johnny Rizzo was really funny. But yeah, like they go up, they do like 10 minutes. It was, or no, those guys were doing like 30 and 45 minutes. Really, really funny. And then usually the owners of the comedy club would see if one of them would give me a ride home at the end of the night. And on the way home, I would just hear about like Howard Stern didn't pay me for this joke. Like I heard that story probably a dozen times.
From different people?
Yep.
Okay. Darn you, Howard Stern. I think it's time to pay your bills.
So, yeah, don't send Howard Stern any jokes on spec.
But yeah, Rabbit Test. Let's see, what else is there to say about it? Don't watch it. It's awful. If you
I think you forgot one good thing about it is that it's like barely available. So
I'm trying to think of something intrinsic to the movie rather than it's so awful, don't do anything with it. So I had 4. And when I said it was short, I didn't mean, oh God, thank God it was over. It wasn't very long, but that was no longer than it had to be. If the jokes were funny.
I would argue it was longer than it had to be.
No, an hour and a half. A movie needs to be like an hour and 25 minutes, right? And I think this was
that movie needs to be like 45 minutes.
A 45.
No, that movie needs to be like 22 minutes on a sitcom. If you boiled that all down to like 22 minutes,
yeah,
maybe like it would have the pace. Because the other thing is kind of slow. The thing I noticed about Billy Crystal is that he doesn't really have a defined comedic persona.
No.
Like his whole shtick is just kind of like, I'm an average dude who likes baseball. And that I feel like that's been his shtick in everything I've ever seen him in. And like you compare this to like, because this would have been Billy Crystal's first starring role in a feature film comedy, right?
Right.
Yeah, you compare this to like The Jerk in terms of like comedians trying to break into feature films. Like, I mean, granted, like it's not fair to compare everything to The Jerk, but
as an example, as a comparison point, that's fair.
Well, in 1978, if like before this comes out, if you said Steve Martin's making a movie and Joan Rivers is making a movie, I wouldn't say there's a clear favorite which movie's going to be better.
No.
But then they come out, and then obviously The Jerk is a million times better than this movie.
And it is his first movie role, first feature film. He was in a TV movie. He was in
Was he on SNL at that point?
What was that?
No, he wouldn't have been on SNL because SNL would have just started, so it would have been the Belushi cast.
Yeah, he wasn't in SNL yet. Yeah. Oh gosh, this movie.
Yeah, because you know what the movie feels like one of those really bad like SNL cast member movies, like Night at the Roxbury.
Yeah, all these SNL actors show up.
Right, you have all these actors show, like you've seen Night at the Roxbury, right?
Yep.
It is almost as bad as Rabbit Test. It might be as bad as Rabbit Test. It was.
Oh no!
I got through Rabbit Test. I didn't get through.
Oh, no kidding.
I got like 30 minutes into Night at the Roxbury, and I was like, oh my, like, I don't mind Will Ferrell, but Chris Kattan must have been really good at giving blowjobs or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he was pretty popular in SNL. People thought he was funny. I didn't think he was that funny.
Maybe he was better on SNL. Like, my favorite movie of his is Monkey Bone, because he's got that weird makeup that makes him look dead for half the movie.
Yeah, that was an interesting movie. I didn't quite get into it, but I did it. I appreciated it, but I didn't get into it. But Dan, would you have finished Rabbit Test if you didn't know that we were going to discuss it?
God, no.
Yeah, okay. I mean, if we're gonna watch Night at the Roxbury, you'd watch it. I'm not recommending that we do. I think we've already just covered enough of it. But yeah, this is by far one of the worst movies. This is one of the worst movies I've ever.
It's worse than Frogs.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of the worst movies we've covered.
We didn't think Frogs was very good, but Matt does. So it had something to it. Apparently, there are people that consider it a good sort of a good nature.
Well, I really enjoyed the scenes towards the end where the frogs are going crazy.
Yeah.
But the rest of it was just kind of like this is so slow.
And I did like that one lizard knocking over the poison. There was a lot of build up to that until it happened.
Yeah, like
there's something I like. I just thought of something I liked about this movie. At one point, they think that this is a man having a baby means that the population growth will be out of control, because that was a time when people were really worried about population explosion.
So they were worried about that. Then that wasn't just like a random thing thrown in.
Right. So what I liked about it was that then the U.S. president leads a group of people in a protest in which they want him to have an abortion. And so an American movie promoted abortion. Wow, that's not very common. I mean, this is when did that Maude episode come out, with the Maude abortion episode? That was probably before that.
Maybe.
Oh yeah, that was that was in 72. But still, 1978. I think that having not just an abortion joke, but at least the U.S. president promoting abortion was probably a bit risque.
Well, that was like a direction that conservatives were like. Remember when Freakonomics was huge?
Yeah, but that's like Freakonomics is 90s, I think.
Freakonomics is like early 2000s, but like what I'm saying is that the first chapter of that is just a bunch of Reagan era stuff about if you have abortion, crime goes down because less black people. Like, I'm not making this up. You look up this book that's pretty much, and this was like bestseller shit for years. Those guys still have a popular podcast, but that was like the conservative pro-abortion argument for a while.
Wow.
Yeah, when like they were turning all those like new atheist kids into like hardcore right-wing conservatives. They weren't going to sell them on the abortion thing, so that was their take on it. And then of course they're never going to go back on the abortion thing because their base is the like crazy like Josh Duggar style nut jobs in the churches. But
Freakonomics came out in 2005. Wow.
Yeah, it came out right before I went to college. It came out, I think, the same year as The God Delusion, and those were both very overrated books that got recommended a lot.
Yeah, I'm reading here their comments on abortion. It's pretty it's pretty awful. It's got wow, the Wikipedia article has more about the abortion controversy than it does about the description of the book.
Oh yeah, because I was getting recommended that in high school.
Yeah, I remember when it was a big thing.
It was huge. And I remember my friend Stan, he was the first person to me, because The God Delusion, I remember reading it, I was like, these are pretty weak arguments. And then Stan kind of pointed out to me the actual point of the new atheists like Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins movement, or everything like that was basically like get them to identify as white people instead of Christians.
Okay.
And that's kind of like, you read any of that Sam Harris stuff about Iraq that was coming out around then, and it's insanity. Like, he's trying to do geopolitical analysis without ever talking about class. So everything's just like, well, they did all this stuff because they're barbarians. And that's like every Sam Harris article.
God.
And this guy was like this renowned, I'm making big air quotes right now for those of you listening without the video, renowned intellectual or whatever. And, you know, it was propaganda going around. I think they saw this big opportunity to get people to the far right after 9/11 in the Iraq war. And new atheism, like, I think all of those guys ended up being Trumpers. Well, except Christopher Hitchens, because he died first.
He died before he had the opportunity.
Yeah, but he probably would have.
Yeah, I believe that. Wait, Dan, I just thought of one more thing. All right, I'll remove I'll remove the bit about it being short enough. So put that aside. So that would have made, so that makes four. The fifth is that I did find it was a little obvious, but giving the character the last name Carpenter, I thought was slightly amusing. So
Like, because of the Carpenters.
no, because Jesus was a carpenter.
Oh.
And he's I mean he's Mary, he's the Mary because he gives birth to Jesus, although we get God at the end saying, oh my God, it's a girl. Jesusina instead of Jesus.
Mm.
But so I found that slightly amusing. It was at the start. It was before we got all the awful bigoted jokes. It's not just racist jokes. There's other jokes in there that fall flat.
Well, I mean, from my vantage point watching it, every joke fell flat. I don't remember a point in the movie where I was like, that's a fun set piece, or like,
no,
something like that. And you know that I can like find something in a comedy movie to like, generally speaking. Like I've seen Dodgeball 2-3 times.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'll watch lots of mediocre comedies and laugh or chuckle, or at least inside find them funny, even if I don't laugh out loud. Whereas this one, literally, I thought two jokes were funny. And the third one could have been if it wasn't couched in so much racism.
Yeah, and I feel like Joan Rivers, too, her style of comedy is so dependent on audience response, right? Because, like, some of these jokes, I feel like if she did them on Carson with an actual audience, maybe they would have worked.
Oh, well,
in the context, like, it just sounds like this person trying to say something very unnaturally in the most natural way they can.
I don't know. What else can we say? Should we do the final wrap up, or is there
more? Yeah, okay.
Do you have any last words about Rabbitest?
What do we watch next week?
Yeah, there we go. Okay, those are my last words too.
So I guess
I think I hope that this gets us in a roll and that we get back into a cadence of watching movies on a regular basis, except once every 6 months, or discuss movies. We're watching plenty of movies, but discuss movies more than once every 6 months.
Yeah. Actually, so I just bought 3,000 something DVDs.
Wow.
Well, I mean, you were there for the first part of it.
That's true. That's true.
What was the? Oh yeah, and if you have just been walking through the doors, so I have a bunch of like sealed Jews for Jesus DVDs that I think might be hilarious.
Yeah, and what's this one called? Have You Been Chosen? Nice.
Have You Been Chosen? And it has 3 ways to watch, and it tells you how to insert a DVD.
That's helpful, right? So there's something to it.
Like a bunch of creationist propaganda that came in, which I watched a little bit of it, and that stuff is insane. Like, I don't know that I fully grasp just how crazy the right wing is, especially like in how they relate to children, until I watched like these things about. It's like this guy giving a lecture about dinosaurs and how they didn't exist.
They were just planted there 6,000 years ago, right?
They were planted there 6,000 years ago, and he leads like a bunch of chants with the kids where it's like, if someone tells you that didn't happen, ask them, were you there?
Oh, that's proof.
Right. And the thing is, like, you could ask this guy, like, were you there?
Yeah. Were you there when Billy Crystal got pregnant?
What
happened?
I wasn't on top just yet. Anyway,
so we've got plenty. We're gonna have plenty to watch. That's great. Hey, we never watched that JFK conspiracy theory movie that I gave you, that I found at some at like the junkyard. Oh yeah, I have another good example of something that we could watch. So. Anyways, I want to before we sign off, I want to give 2 shout outs. First to Ludilka, who was actually concerned about us, because we hadn't been on for a while. So hey, Ludilka, and also to my buddy Greg, my coworker. Turns out he's been listening regularly, so that's exciting. And Greg has actually recorded. I hope it's okay to tell people. Is going to be coming out with a podcast, and so I'm looking forward to that. Well, Greg.
Yeah, I think that's how the Wu-Tang Clan started.
Well, we should, we could do a crossover episode. You come on, maybe you'll invite us to your show, Greg.
Well, like only good things have happened to people where we've guested on their show, right? There was that podcast about making podcasts.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they
What's your podcast? I think it was called.
are they even still around? Actually, I don't know if that podcast is still going.
They went on hiatus. I'm not aware of them coming back on. I mean, that was fun. That was a fun episode. Shoot, I can't remember the name. I'll have to go back and look because I'm.
Yeah, I think it was What's Your Podcast?
Okay, I'm looking it up to see where it's at right now. It's hard to search because if I look for what's your podcast, it keeps giving me articles about telling you what is a podcast or your podcast.
The podcast was actually called Your Podcast or Mine.
Anyway, yeah, so don't watch this movie. We look forward to continuing and starting this up again. And Greg and come on down to Silver Factory Records.
If you like movies, boy, I might have more movies than any store in upstate New York right now.
Even more than that last not Starbucks.
The last Blockbuster?
Yeah.
Probably less than the last Blockbuster, but
I don't know.
I definitely have less than Kevin does over at Video Underground. Because I think he was telling me at one point it was like 15,000.
Oh wow.
Well, yeah, because he keeps them out of the cases, so it's a lot easier to do without cases.
On that note,
I'm still Dan.
And I'm still Ron. And
this has been the Nominee Questionable Movies covering the movie Rabbit Test, 1978, Joan Rivers, Billy Crystal. Summary, don't watch it. We'll see you at the movies, but not that movie. Unless you're being bad and you're not listening to us.
All right. Take care, everyone.